What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blue River Bow Hunting Podcast, episode 81. I just looked at my phone, Dylan. I will be at your house in 10 days. Tomorrow will be single digits, counting down the days till we get into the turkey woods and get after some birds. But beforehand, we'll talk some turkeys with Brad Strope from Forged in the Outdoors. What's going on, man?
Not a lot, fellas. How are you?
Great.
Trying to stay out of that wild weather.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, we're just giving it. We're just passing it along. We had it here in Missouri yesterday, and now it's your turn.
Oh, yeah. That time of the year for sure. But for somebody that doesn't know you, Brad, introduce yourself a little bit.
Brad Strope, live in Missouri, founder and owner of Forged in the Outdoors. I grew up here in Missouri, spent all my time pretty much hunting here in Missouri. I think I've left the state one time. Getting excited for turkey season. Mm-hmm. It's coming up quick, 15th of April here in Missouri.
Ooh, we get it a couple days before you. I'm gonna rub it in. I'm gonna send you some pictures.
Go ahead. Hey, if I see you out there with a turkey in your hands, I'll be happy for you.
I'm just playing around. It'd be funny though. Missouri. I went to Missouri. We'll see. It would have been. I think it was COVID year. I think 2020 or 2021, but maybe been the year after COVID. But I had a blast out there. That was I've talked about it on here a couple times. I missed twice actually with the 835. I had the sight all messed up on it. I never lived that down though, because that was kind of like my first swing at filming turkeys. And at first we did it out of a blind, then I was like, had a bow, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna get the gun back out.
Yeah, there's nothing easy about filming turkeys, especially if you're self-filming by yourself.
Right. Yeah, Dylan's gonna get a huge taste of that opening day, Tennessee. I'm gonna try to give him a little tutorial the night before, but if it comes down to me self-filming, he can probably at least run a GoPro and be all right.
Yeah, which I mean, I've ran our cameras a little bit and some GoPros, but I don't really ever. It's mainly just me hunting by myself, so I've never really had the real urge to. I'm scared that once I get into it, it's going to be a slippery slope. So I'm trying to hold myself back as long as I can before I indulge in that.
Every trip will be an experience, and every experience will be a lesson learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. A story that you can put together, via YouTube or TikTok or however one content creator does it anymore. There's so many different versions of content. You get my YouTube version, which is some pretty good stuff, and then I kind of be silly on TikTok a little bit and make like some motivational videos and stuff like that. But you see different sides of somebody's kind of journey on it.
Right. And if you do it long enough, you could put together a season of bloopers too. So
for sure.
Yeah, opening weekend, I think we'll probably need the stuff rolling more than just hunting, because we're going to do the roundup and have everybody come over and hang out, and me and him, that's going to be a hoot in itself, getting out there and just we've talked so much, we hunt the same in ways, so I think we'll mesh good and be able to kind of really make the hunts come together.
Absolutely.
Brad, you'll get a kick. Do you use a drone on any of your filming stuff?
I'm testing a drone this year. I've just everything you read about them, even the professionals, you're gonna crash them. It's not if, it's just a matter of when you're gonna crash it. So I'm starting out cheap just to kind of get my feet wet with it. But yeah, I'm gonna try it. But I don't know. I'm afraid it's just gonna scare everything away, including me.
Well, I got my first one that's got some. It's like I started the same as you. I barely spent that much money on it, but it's got a camera on it, 4K, all that stuff. So I'm going to try to capture some shots with that, which will be new for me. But it'll be just a different kind of add of value to your production value. Make something just a little bit more cool to check out, especially with him living in like the hills of Tennessee, having some big shots of pastures and hardwoods would be pretty cool, I think.
Oh, absolutely. When I was shopping for actually the drone I have was actually a Christmas present. And but looking at drones and everything, two features that I always look for is one, a home button so it automatically lands by itself, and a follow me feature to where at least if I can walk in a straight line, maybe it will at least follow me too.
Yeah.
Right. But I haven't even got it like out of the box yet. Like I'm so busy right now with work and being a coach for a little man's baseball team. Um, I'm ready to go. I could leave right now and go on a trip, but that probably wouldn't be making the trip with me because I haven't even. I mean, I've got it out of the package and charged the batteries and that sort of thing. But it's been so crazy weather-wise around here recently. I don't trust throwing it up in 25-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, I think I think you'd lose it pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. Missouri, back to Missouri, but what's bird population? How's that looking out there?
Well, it depends where you go. Missouri's been one of those states, as there's many others, that's been struggling through the years as far as population. Yeah, we had a good harvest year last year, but it's crazy to where the supporting population of the birds seem to be in pockets. Um, you know, they're just scattered around the state. So you look at like the top three counties for the state of Missouri and turkey season, they probably have a better population than I do where I hunt. And in Osage County, we're up there in the rankings, but even inside of the county, you're still going to have different populations in different parts of the county. Where I hunt, it's been a struggle the last few years, and it's mainly because of weather. Turkeys generally like to nest in low-lying areas. And throughout this time of year, going into the breeding season, we start getting a lot of rain. And when they're nesting, those nests will get flooded out, along with all the nest predators and everything. So, I mean, we're starting to see some bird activity. I actually was out in the woods this weekend and seen some scratching, but never heard a bird. Usually by now you're seeing them out in the green fields and they're just not there. So it'll be interesting.
When is that usually the time frame when you see them hit that greenery and being out in field and strutting around?
They should already be there. Youth season will be coming up. What next? It's usually like a week or 2 weeks. I don't have the exact dates, but before the regular season. So you should be seeing them, especially with the rain. Now, maybe not so much in 50-mile-an-hour monsoons, but we should be seeing them out in the fields. Now, there are people seeing them. I just haven't laid eyes on any yet.
I got you. What's the Missouri DNR? Are they pretty big on the wild turkey? Do they do a lot of things and all that sort of stuff for the wild turkey?
Yeah, I mean, they're coming around. The biologists are catching birds and tagging them, and the only way that they get any feedback on them is through hunters. If a hunter harvests a bird that's got a tag on it, they can get a hold of the conservation department. They can pretty much tell where that bird was released. Um, but they're looking at different things. They've extended a lot of the predator seasons. They've extended a lot of the fur bear seasons, coons, possums, stuff like that, which are nest raiders. And so this year, something new for the state of Missouri. Even in my lifetime, we've never been able to hunt all day. So we always had to stop at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So starting this year on private ground, you can hunt from daylight till dark. Public ground is still turned off at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're looking at that as far as a measure. I don't quite understand it into the turkey population, but you know, it depends. You could talk to somebody in the northeast corner of the state, and they've never seen a problem with turkey declining. So it'll be interesting to see. But state of Missouri is trying a few different things. I think there's more that they can do. I wish that they would open it up to the people. There's several states that have big meetings where everybody can kind of join in and throw out ideas and kind of come together as a group effort. But state of Missouri they're trying, but we're not alone in the fight. So other states have other ideas, and everybody's sharing things across the board.
Yeah, it seems like that out west. I call you west. You're still considered the Midwest, but west of me seems like they've been having a lot of trouble out that way with turkey populations here in the recent few years. I had the Hoosier Backcountry podcast was talking about him going out, Seth going out there to Nebraska, and he used to be able to shoot 4 birds out there. And now he can only shoot 2, and I think he can't shoot more than 1 in a day or something like that. But seems like a lot of states are having that problem. Even Tennessee, right, Dylan? You used to be able to shoot 4 birds too.
Yeah, and so it went from 4 to 3. Now we're at 2. But we don't really. I mean, they moved season back, thinking that it would help, with nesting. They'd maybe get more nested. But we had a record year, so it kind of. I don't know if that really played a big factor, or the hens were already nested. I seen hens getting bred last month. I mean, because of our weather's been crazy, and I was texting Brett, and I was like,
Right.
dude, because they moved it back 2 weeks, and it just used to when it opened on Easter. So juvenile weekend was the
Okay.
weekend before Easter, and that was always like the prime time. That was when they first turned on. So I've noticed birds grouping back up already in trail cam pictures, and that's a little alarming to me. Now they're hot right now, so that
Right.
means that the big boy could have pushed them off. But a lot of my birds right now are beat up on trail cam pictures.
Yeah,
So
that one
that
had
that
some all kinds of missing feathers.
yeah, so that means that they've been at it, and they've been hard enough at it to fight. So it just kind of it alarms me a little bit, because I mean I honked the horn this morning and heard 2 gobbles. So it's just
Yeah.
like, man, we've got 2 more weeks before we can fire off. So it's like you better get it while the getting's good. But for me personally, we do a lot of management as far as like trying to do nesting and
Right.
keeping the predators out of there. And I think our game and like the fish guys, they're trying, but it's hard to get some of those big vast areas um, managed like they should be, because you do have so many out of staters coming in, or
Right.
the guys who don't necessarily care about next year's flock, so they're in there just shooting whatever, busting up roost, and so I think that all plays a factor as well. Um, so I don't. I think that maybe the. Was you a fan of the quitting at 1 o'clock, or do you like being able to hunt until dark?
Well, I don't know. Ask me that after this season. I've thought hard about it. I thought, well, that's going to open up an opportunity to put more hunters out. So, what's that going to do to the population? But thinking about it, hindsight 2020. So, our season was 3 weeks long, and we could take 2 birds. You could only take 1 bird in the first week, but in weeks 2 or weeks 3, you could take 2 birds in the same week. But looking back on this all day hunting, it may cut down on the hunters out there that are taking jakes because they're pressured. They don't have enough time to hunt, and they see a beard, they're going to shoot a turkey. So hopefully that this will lower the amount of jakes that are taken, and we'll see what it does. I honestly, I'm at the point where I'd like to see maybe fall season go away for a while, but not. I don't know that there's many hunters that shoot hens anymore. I still think we're after gobblers. We're
Yeah,
after the toms. Um, Maybe even taking it down to a 1 bird season, maybe 2 weeks rather than 3 weeks. We can throw all kinds of different ideas out there. We can make it maybe where you can't take a jake at all. But how do you police that? How do you
Yeah,
how do
it's
you
tough.
control that? So I mean, there's so many different things that can be done, but at least they're trying to do something. So we'll look at that as a positive direction.
Mhm.
so for archery season, Tennessee, you're allowed to take a bearded bird, and then we have a secondary shotgun fall season. So I agree with you. I think if you really kind of want to try to see that, see if it helps, I think maybe pulling that away, on the archery or the fall, and see if that helps. Because are you allowed one during archery for deer?
We're actually allowed 2 during archery. So if and I may be completely wrong, but if memory serves me right, so with turkey between spring, fall, and then archery, we could take like 6 birds.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, it's they've got to make some changes now. Somebody may be sending me a message tomorrow telling me that I'm absolutely wrong. on this, um, but no, when I would go and get my archery tags, I would get all of these antlerless tags, and then you'd get the two different any deer tags, and then here come the turkey tags, and it's like, and I've killed some turkeys, during archery season, but it was more of opportunity than it was actually out there trying to take
Right.
the turkeys. But yeah, during the fall season, there's still a good number of birds taken in the fall during shotgun season.
Yeah, when we came out there last year to Missouri, when we bought the archery tags, I didn't buy archery turkey tags. I got them for free. They
Yep.
gave me 2 tags for free just for buying the archery tag.
Yeah, we used to joke that with the amount of tags that we used to get here in Missouri, you had to carry two wallets. You had to carry one for all your debit cards and your money, and then you had to have a trucker's wallet to carry all the tags that you got.
That's funny. Uh, I know you ran through it a little bit when we talked last about deer hunting, but kind of touch on the property that you're hunting, terrain, and all that sort of stuff when it comes to what the property that you're hunting or properties.
So most of the properties that I hunt are hill country. It's not steep terrain by any means, but there are some pretty good draws and ravines in them. But I'm hunting, even my farm is hilltop, is ridge top, and it just kind of opens up into, I can't say a flat, but it's kind of a rolling hay fields, pastures. But down in the bottoms, in this particular area, is all crop fields. So a lot of hardwoods up top and crop fields all down in the river bottoms.
Woo! I like the sound of that.
Hmm.
Especially for turkey, I would feel like that. See, it's different from like when I've chased birds here in Indiana to down to Kentucky, but where we hunted at in Kentucky, the birds would actually roost because the property that we were hunting and the property I own down there is right along Lake Cumberland. The
Okay.
birds would actually roost out over the lake up, and they'd fly out from the ridge and go up on a tree that's overlooking the lake and stuff. Like they were way up there and way out there. Like if they went straight down, they're falling like 400 or 500 feet probably.
Wow.
Wow. Well, they're safe there, and they do have that escape route.
Hmm.
No predator is going to go over that edge, but they can glide down. So,
But my question was, do they kind of roost up over that river?
yeah, I mean, it's you get down along the rivers. That's where a lot of your big trees, cottonwoods, sycamores, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. On our farm, it's all about the big oak trees. There's roosting trees everywhere. But we've been also doing some forestry management too. So we've been doing some logging and actually have some logging coming up. So, and that'll play effect into it. But yeah, here in Missouri, if you find a group of big trees with a lot of limbs, chances are there's going to be some turkeys around there roosting.
That's awesome. Everybody kind of puts work in for whitetails, food plots and all that kind of stuff. Do you do any kind of work like that for turkeys?
No, not directly. In the past, I've planted some clover, which, kind of helps the birds and everything. But, with the feeding regiment for whitetail, using anything with a grain, the turkeys take advantage of it too. So it's kind of a win-win situation. You're not only trying to improve your deer herd, but the turkeys get nice and fat off of it too.
For sure. But it sounds like, do some logging in there. You have some logging roads. I know Dylan's talked about that before. Them birds, hot on them logging trails.
Oh, absolutely. I've ambushed birds before, and may have been a couple times where I shot a tom in self defense too, because he he was just that close.
That's awesome. Scouting wise, how do you scout for turkeys? Is it just a trail cam thing? Is it you looking for roost trees and scratchings and dust bowls and that sort of thing? How exactly are you scouting turkeys?
Throw a dart at a map.
That works
No,
too.
no, actually, it's like with anything else. You're looking for the most recent sign. Like this last weekend being out in the woods, I seen a lot of scratching. There was no vocal birds whatsoever, but you could see definitely that there was a pretty good flock that had went through the woods. So I'm looking for scratching. Trying to find those roosting trees. If you find a a regularly used roosting tree, you're going to find a lot of turkey crap and feathers on the ground underneath of it. You can, even some of the lower limbs, you can look and see, just where all the turkey droppings are. Another method that I've kind of put into play too is turkey dusting bowls. Turkeys are one of those creatures, with their feathers, they've got to keep themselves clean. Otherwise, they just create a lot of bacteria and then bugs will just get up underneath those leaves and just wreak havoc on them. And, a lot of people don't realize birds don't take baths with water. They can't. So a bird bath, a turkey bath is actually a dust bowl. They will get in that dirt and that powdery dirt, and they will just roll around and kick that dirt up on them, and that's them taking a bath. That cleans them. That helps keeps the parasites and the bugs off of them. And I've had some luck. Turkeys will visit those dust bowls every day, even maybe multiple times a day. It just depends on what the weather does. If they have a damp night or if they're out in the rain, they've got to dry off, and once their feathers are dry, they'll go and get into them dust bowls and dust themselves. But they have to wait till they're dry, otherwise they won't be able to fly away from predators.
Yeah, I can remember seeing that for the first time, being 13, 14 years old and seeing a couple of hens hit one. I'm like asking my dad, like, what are they doing? I had no idea. And he knew the answer. He said the same thing. He said they dust themselves off and help gets the bugs off of them, cleans them up a little bit. And I think we seen that same hen come to that dust bowl 3 or 4 times that day because we were just sitting in the blind waiting it out.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool to see. So if you've never seen it before, just go YouTube it, look up some turkey dusting videos, and they get with it. It's actually pretty cool how they do it. I think they're doing everything but the Olympic 500K or something in there. I mean, they're rolling around like they're in spaz.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
yeah, we've tilled before and disked, and then
Mhm.
noticed that they'd get out there and just make, almost like you said, a nest, like a big
Yep.
bowl, and they would just waller it out. So it's pretty neat to watch them because you're like, what in the world?
Yeah, and it's crazy because you never really know how many they do it, but when you find them, keep track of them, especially if they're close to a roosting tree. I was hunting
Mhm.
on some public ground last year, uh, here not far from where I live, and just in this one property, I found 5 different dust bowls, and this was probably within about 500 acres. So,
Wow.
it's they gotta take care of themselves just like we do.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yes, sir. What about traditions? You and your buddies or you and your family have any traditions when it comes to a turkey camp or something like that?
No, I grew up not far from the farm. We didn't actually live on the farm. We just lived down the road. For me, tradition with turkey hunting is I've pretty much hunted turkey season mostly by myself. Uh, my dad turkey hunted as, when he was younger, but it's not something that he really took along, and it never kept the passion up. So I taught myself the call, and I just got out there trial and error. There was mornings where before school at grade school, because I was one of those people that walked uphill both ways to school. You've heard them stories. So yeah, there was a little grade school there in my hometown. Um, but I had the opportunity where my dad would actually take me to the farm, uh, before daylight, kick me out of the truck, and then he'd come back and get me before school started. So I had an opportunity to hunt there because he worked nights, so it worked out. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much my tradition. I mean, it's pretty much just been me and myself out there turkey hunting. I have hunted with other people, but I don't know, there's just something about being out there by yourself doing it. I miss the camaraderie at times, but um, it just kind of created that bigger challenge for self filming.
For sure. I really enjoy turkey hunting with somebody. I don't know if it's just everybody, get the bird fired up and it's not like deer hunting. It's on that sort of sense. Like deer hunting most of the time, yeah, I would rather hunt by myself. Turkey hunting, I want to, run and gun with somebody. Let's go chase these birds down, you know, d- just and then you finally get one and you guys are high-fiving and hugging and stuff. And
Right.
I don't know. I enjoy that sort of thing.
Well, that can be a great advantage too, especially in the filming part of it. You can have the
Mhm.
guy running the camera who's also behind you calling. You can make it a group effort. Yeah, I mean there's definitely some beneficial aspects to it.
Hmm. Let's see here. Kind of run me through a hunt with you. Start. How do you start the morning? What do you? Well, I guess you would never make it to an evening hunt, but what you would do when you got to midday?
Usually by midday, when season starts, when we had it closing at 1 o'clock, that is actually a prime time during the day. I'd start the regular
Hmm.
routine, getting out there before daylight, doing the owl hoots, and when you start getting that daylight, trying to locate them one way or another. But as you go in through the morning, obviously there's a time, when they come down off the tree, the toms are looking to hook up with the hens. And eventually those hens are going to push them away, or they're going to get bred and the toms are going to move on. A lot of people don't realize, you know, by noon, most people have already gave up and just ready to go home. But those toms get more fired up in the afternoon. Now they may not be as vocal, but they're looking for more hens to breed. So it's just a matter of sticking with it, unless you trip on a big mushroom pile somewhere and spend the rest of your day picking up mushrooms. Um, but so it'll be different for me, going into an evening hunt because it's something I've never done. So I have to change my routine. Um, you know, turkeys have a pattern. Once they come down out of the tree, they'll make a big loop and they will actually come back around to where they originally started. So if you can catch them on the backside of that, is kind of my philosophy with going into evening, is catching them before, as they're going on to the roost. So it'll be, I'm gonna have to change some tactics. It's gonna be a learning year. It's hunting hunting for turkeys in the evening is it's gonna be a new experience for me for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say like that takes a lot of integrity to quit at one, because I'm sure there's moments where that bird's fired up and it switches over and he's potentially there at 115, 120, and you're like, so that takes a lot of integrity, because you know I know for one, for myself, I never risk, because I think like if I do something dumb now, that could potentially cost me, 1 to 5 years of not hunting. So it's just not worth it. But I'm I'm always impressed with people that have documented, like, they're on a bird and then it's like 102 and he finally pops up and they're like, oh, we'll get him tomorrow.
Yeah. I've been in that situation, when you start getting around that noon hour, it's like, do I keep going because I know what's going to happen, and it's happened to me before. You're working a bird, you hear him off in the distance, and then he stops gobbling. Well, chances are he's probably coming, and if he doesn't eventually show up, well, next thing you know, it's like 10 minutes till one, and here he is. He's just gobbling, and he's within distance. You just can't see him yet, and you just have to walk away from him. And it's awful. It's an awful feeling. As much as I love the turkey hunt and love having that interaction with them, yeah, it really gets you down in your gut when you have to walk away from a hot bird.
Oh, yeah, I could only imagine.
Midday, I find magic in like that 10:30 window, somewhere right in 10:30, 11 o'clock, somewhere right in there. Seems like I always get one. Maybe that, like you said, the hens have left or whatever, and he just gets lonely out there in that field, and he just won't shut up. Just this one gobble after another. But what's your experiences on like vocal birds versus birds that are silent and may not even gobble that much, and all of a sudden, boom, he's at 15 yards and you didn't even know it?
And I haven't pinpointed the reason, but it seems like the properties that, at least around our farm, birds are very vocal once they come down off the tree, and they're with the hens, or they're bringing the hens to them, or whatever it may be. But then it seems like they'll go silent. And honestly, the birds that I've killed for the last 2 years have came in silent. It just seems like once you get to a certain point of the day, they just completely shut up. And that's where it's going to test your patience, because most people as turkey hunters, they run and gun. You don't generally deer hunt turkeys. But I've found some success of certain areas that I know on the farm. I will park my rear end and I will sit there and I will, occasionally call, and they will not gobble, but next thing you know, they're right there in front of you. And I don't know if it's just something to do with too many jakes, because the adult birds are tired of getting beat up by a bunch of jakes, or if it's a predator problem or what. But yeah, it's very temperamental. And I rarely ever hear birds gobble in the evening. So this will be, like I said, and it just may be a curse on my farm. I don't know. So, but we're definitely going to give it a try, and it's going to be different. There's a lot of people here in Missouri that have never hunted after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'll be curious to see the amount of birds that are taken, you know, in the evening, or after the 1 o'clock hour versus before. So a lot of people rather hunt the mornings. I don't know. We'll see.
It may move some birds around if people are hunting roosts potentially, busting roosts up, or because I was
Absolutely.
talking to Brett about that. On my farms, I know exactly what tree they're roosting, and I told him, I was like, I'll try to cut them off, but we're going to do it 300-400 yards before they get where they're going, because I don't want to,
Right.
disrupt that. So I'm curious to see how that pans out in y'all's favor, to see if it does disperse birds, more widely.
Yeah, and another interesting part of it, it's definitely going to change the pressure on the birds. Um, but you're on private property, so you're not going to have as many hunters out there per se as like public ground where they have to stop at 1 o'clock. So I think it's going to change the pressure. I'm curious to see if the amount of pressure it puts on an evening bird if they don't start changing their roosting trees.
Mm,
Just depends. Just depends on I guess the amount of pressure you're giving them.
yeah.
I think I've only killed like one afternoon bird, and I think it was like around 3:30. And there was I called four of them in. I went up this ridge, called. They was out in a bean field. I ran like 150 yards, sat my ass right on the corner of that field. Couldn't see them yet, and all of a sudden they were in my lap, and it happened within like 10 minutes of being in the woods. I mean, they struck right as I called the very first sequence. And then I've been in Kentucky where I haven't really noticed a whole lot of vocal birds in the evening. And where I hunt here in Indiana, they're definitely not vocal in the evening, because they're the type of birds, as soon as they hit the ground, they shut up. They may gobble 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times on the ground. Boom, they're silent the rest of the day. But
Yeah,
that's why they're hard to get on, I feel like.
yeah, it's looking back on trail camera data too, I think a lot of the pictures that I got of turkeys were either in the afternoon or the evening, not so much in the morning. So, and it just may have been where I've had the cameras placed at. But a lot of people always say that the eastern wild turkey is one of the hardest ones to hunt. So, there's there's easier birds out there.
If there's easier birds out there, I'm trying to go check one of them out, because I have never hunted any of the other subspecies, but
Right.
easterns, there is something about a hard goblin eastern in the hardwoods somewhere coming out of a bottom or somewhere. I mean, that will send chills up your spine. But I can't imagine, hearing one fire off in the hills in the Dakotas, or something like that, or a swamp down in Florida. I think it'd all still be pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. And talking about, out of state hunting, turkey hunting has grown. It's not been a dying season. It's actually growing in popularity, and it has over the years. But now it's, you know, everybody wants to go to the other states and hunt. And sure, I'd love to hunt Florida. I'd love to hunt, go up and chase the Merriams, go down and play with the Rios. Um, but it's, got to have time to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Work gets in the way.
Hmm.
Dylan, I think I've asked you this question before. If you were to chase the Grand Slam, because I know you've just got the Eastern under your belt, what's the next bird you go after? If you were to start your slam, what bird would you go to next?
I'd probably head to the Rio.
Rio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think that part of the country would be pretty fun to hunt, from us being kind of Midwest/Southern type of hardwoods, going out there in that, sandy cactus, that sort of stuff. I would probably find it incredibly challenging, really.
Oh yeah. The terrain difference would be a big curveball for me. And I'm sure they act totally different just because of the terrain. I'd probably save Florida for the very last, just because of the creatures they have down there that could be potentially
Right.
looking for me. So
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that'd be my last one too.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be wrestling a snake while I'm trying to turkey hunt either. So,
No. Yeah.
and I honestly, if I always said if I could win the lottery, of course, to win the lottery, you got to play the lottery. But the the oscillated turkey, I mean, that is one of the most unique, beautiful birds. But there again, you're going to South America, you're going to be dealing with things that's going to try to get you. So,
yeah,
Those
absolutely.
those things don't even sound like a turkey. Like when they gobble, they got some wild noises that come out of that bird.
yeah, and they look like a peacock. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
but
for what I would chase next, I would probably be in the same boat. I would probably go a Rio or a Marum. I think a Marum would be really fun to chase, like I said, up in the hills in the Dakotas somewhere, something like that. I think being way high up in elevation and that sort of stuff. I think that would be a lot of fun too. Definitely, kind of in the same ballpark. Be very challenging to a Midwest hardwoods hunter.
right. Well,
I'd have
living here in Missouri, it's I'm fortunate to be, not that far away from going to hunt a Merriam or going to hunt a Rio, whether it be Kansas, Oklahoma. Um, I don't know, Florida, it seems like everybody wants to go to Florida now because that is the first season that opens up.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I want to get my slam. It'll probably never be a world slam in my time, but the opportunity's there. I just got to go get it.
Be a lot of fun though. I mean, it's definitely going to be kind of like a retirement thing for me. Probably like the first year. I'll probably have it all worked out, save up for it, where I can start in Florida and kind of work my way up the coast a little bit, and then come kind of curve back to the east and do it all in one season. Let's go for broke. Even if I had maybe already completed it separately, but then just do a one big trip. Rent a badass RV or something, or one of those conversion vans, and just start down south and work my way up. I think that would be an absolute blast.
Yeah, it's one of those that obviously you want to do it. Most turkey hunters want to go chase all the subspecies. For me, kind of the intriguing part is how are they going to interact with your calling? Is your calling it to an eastern going to work the same for a Merriam? Is it going to work the same for a Rio? And there's difference of opinions out there, but it's one of those you can listen to people all day talk about it, but the great experience is going to do it.
What about learning to call? How exactly did you learn to call? Did you have anybody to kind of show you? Did you watch DVDs? How did you learn to call a wild turkey?
Well, back when I started hunting turkeys, I was probably at age 12, something like that. All we had was magazines then. You could go and rent some VHS tapes and things like that. And honestly, what I did, my very first call was an old Loman box call, and that was back when they had rubber bands on the box calls. It had a little eyelet on the top of it. It had rubber bands looped through it. And I just got out there and did it. I probably scared more turkeys away than I actually called in at that time, because of that god awful sound coming out of that box. It was more of the wildlife trying to figure out what that noise was. But it was just a matter of doing. And I would even actually take some extra time during the off season to go and listen to the birds, and just kind of self-taught myself with calling. But it was always with the box call. And then I gradually went into mouth calls and probably swallowed a few and gagged and choked and probably sounded like an old horn on a Model T or something. But then it's just one of those things that you just have to stick with it and keep practicing. And you don't have to be perfect to call in a turkey either.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into some vest talk, calls and that sort of thing. What you rocking? What's your favorite to play around with? What are you toting into the woods?
You know, uh, it's a good thing for me that they put a lot of vests or a lot of pockets in turkey vest. Because I'm probably that go-go gadget turkey caller that walks out in the woods with five of everything. Um, but no, I'm usually taking along, a handful of mouth calls, just, all the different cuts and whatnot. Obviously everybody grew up on a single or double reeds. I still take them out there today because them old them old cuts like that still do a good job. I'll take multiple pot calls. I may take a glass, take a slate, maybe even aluminum, and I'll even take a couple different box calls. A smaller box call, maybe a longer range box call, on even to, this year I'm actually going to try a tube call. I've talked to Cuz Strickland, who's a big tube call guy. And I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, and he's very set on the tube call, especially for locating and distance. So uh, I'm gonna give that a try this year, see how it works. And of course, I may scare everything out of a 5 mile radius, because you really have to control your sound with them because they are loud. But yeah, if it's something turkey related, it's probably in my vest, and it's calls. I have backups to backups to backups.
I'm with you, man. I get made fun of. Adam makes fun of me. He says if there's something that you need, Brett's got it in his vest. I mean, it don't matter what it is. I got shears to cut off limbs and stick down in the ground to make a kind of like a blind. I've got 10 different mouth calls, 4 different pot calls. I got a flashlight, chalk,
Yep.
sandpaper for your pot call. I got
Yep.
it all. Go gadget.
Yep. It's you just never know. If you're using one call and you're not getting any response out of it, change to another call. You'll be surprised. You could go through 5 different calls and never get a bird to call back to you, but that sixth call might just trigger him. I know people that go out in the woods with one call and one call only, and that's it. Most times it's usually a mouth call, and I've done that, especially running and gunning. But there comes a point in time where that mouth call and mouth call and me is not going to get along, especially if I need to put a chew in my mouth. So
That's awesome.
So are you chasing them with bow, shotgun? Have you switched to the 410? I know a lot of people have switched to the with the TSS. They've kind of went down to a 20 or a 410 for longevity of endurance, I guess you could say, as far as chasing them. Um,
yeah, I grew up hunting turkeys with a 20 gauge, and it was no special load. It was probably the first time turkey hunting. Probably never even was a turkey load. But then gradually went into a 12 gauge, and then I went up to a 10 gauge.
Whew.
Nice.
I like 10 gauge. It's intimidating,
I've killed a lot of
but
birds with a 10 gauge.
oh, absolutely. And when you can knock a bird down at 80 yards without any issues, that 10 gauge has got some knockdown. Um, this year I thought about the 410, but I don't know. I think I'm just going to stick with the old traditional. I've got an 835 Mossberg shotgun or the old single shot 10 gauge, and I might have to get out old Betty Lou the 10 gauge this year.
Betty
It
Lou, I love it.
her and I have not had a dance in a while, so and it doesn't matter that 10 gauge. You can go through the thickest of brush with them 10 gauges. There ain't nothing stopping them.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
like that saying. They say, "Why do you shoot a 3.5?" And he said, "Because they don't make a 4." So I guess why do you shoot a 10? Because they don't make an 8.
Yeah,
Right.
and truth be told, at 10 gauge, the first time I shot a 3.5 inch 12 gauge, um, I was ready to go back to a 10 gauge because that 12 gauge, that 3.5 inch, that punch on that 3.5 inch 12 gauge, I think a 10 gauge is more of a push rather than a punch. Um, you can say what you want and be scared of the 10 gauge, but 10 gauges have killed a lot of turkeys.
No, I guarantee you.
Absolutely. That's what I grew up to. I killed my first ever with a 10 gauge. Actually, I killed like probably my first 10 birds with the 10 gauge. It's my dad's now. And I've switched over to a 12, and I have a Remington 20 that I like using every once in a while. But you're right though. The 10 it is more like a push than a punch.
Yep.
But the first bird I shot when I was 14, I kind of scooted off the tree a little bit, and when I shot, it laid me. I was a
Mm.
skin beanpole back in. It laid me flat on my back.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, you know the.
I remember
Go
my
ahead.
dad. I had a 500 with a 3 inch, and I was little too, And I remember telling him, I was like, Dad, I don't know, maybe we should take the. He's like, Are you excited to go hunt? And I said, Yeah. He said, Then you're not gonna feel it kick. He said, You'll be pumped up, you won't feel it. I felt it a little bit, about jumped out of my hands, but you don't think about it, then you're just ready to do it again. So it was just, I was like, Yeah, I'm pumped up for it. So I was like watching the bird come in, and I was like, I better be pumped up because I'm about to find out.
Yeah, you go back, centuries ago, maybe a 10 gauge was all anybody had.
Yeah.
They may have been the only shotgun in the house, and you'll get a kind of get a kick out of this story. So one of my cousins, so I come from a big family, so my dad was one of 10, and several of his brothers carried on traditions with bigger families. So, and they they came up through the 40s and the depression, and they were bricklayers as kids. And but one of my cousins, we went out squirrel hunting one weekend, and lo and behold, he showed up to squirrel hunt with a 10 gauge.
Oh my god.
And I asked him, it was years later, probably at a family reunion. I was like, we never really talked about you hunting with that 10 gauge. And he was like, how in the world do you squirrel hunt with a 10 gauge? He goes, well, it's easy. He says, you pattern that shotgun, you just aim a little to the right or a little to the left, and you just catch them squirrels with the outside of the pattern.
I like that though. I mean,
I do
that's kind of
too.
Hey,
Yeah.
smart.
but truth be told, actually what I'm intrigued about is what I'm thinking about is a 28 gauge, the TSS.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot of new information coming out now about 28 gauge with the TSS, and seeing some of those videos with some of this new TSS loads from several companies. That thing's got a heck of a pattern.
I
Yeah,
don't
that
think I've ever.
TSS, it's a different animal, man. With the 410 last year, I was so surprised with it. I've got two little girls, one fixing to turn 4, so it's been an excuse to buy, all the 22s and the
All right.
410s and she's going to duck hunt with me, so of course she's going to need a 20 or a 28 gauge. So,
Right.
that helps me out. But the TSS, like you said, man, it's just gnarly, and it's changing the game because I shot one last year with it and it did not move. And I was telling Brett, I was like, I think because it is a smaller gun, you aim because you want every pellet to count. And I think that
Right.
plays a factor. And then it hits hard. And I love it. I don't like paying for it, but it's
Right.
definitely good
Right.
stuff.
There's always something bad to go with the good.
Yeah, 100%.
But could you imagine a 10 gauge TSS round?
Woo!
Yeah, I would. Hey, you get some TSS with a 10 gauge. I got a bird that you can come on down and we'll get it on
That's
video for sure. 'Cause
Right.
that
that
would
would be awesome.
I would almost think that would be a 100-yard bird.
We would
Yeah, I
try
mean,
it.
absolutely.
With the right choke, I think you could do it. And I've talked to some guys of recent that are actually, loading their own loads because their next goal is to try and shoot a turkey at 100 yards. Uh, but that's, with a 12 or a 20 gauge with TSS. I, every archery season, bow season, you see guys trying to shoot their deer out the farthest, and I think it's coming. You're going to see that with the turkeys as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
We're human beings. We got to try it.
you got to push
You
for
know,
it.
the
Yeah.
old, the old saying, "Hold my beer and watch this." Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Can you imagine 10 gauge TSS like slow mo from out of the barrel, and that bird being at like 30 or 40 yards? I mean, it is gonna be. There's a video, and I need to find it because I think this is the second time I've talked about this. There's a video out there somewhere. It's the Drury brothers, and they're hunting. I think they're in like Georgia or something, and he shoots this bird at point blank range, and like just the way the sun was hitting it, you see like the blood like splatter off of him. Like it's just like blah, and there's just like a cloud of blood, and you're like, holy, like, oh, can they show that? Like he smokes him. I gotta find that video and send it to you guys because he flattens this bird.
Look like a
Yeah.
cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Damn near. Um, filming setup. I know you're a big filming guy, and you talked about self-filming these birds. Kind of talk about your filming setup for the turkeys.
Well, it's pretty much the same setup that I use for deer. I'm using a Canon camcorder. It's actually a G40. It's still 1080p. It's not even 4K. But I'm using, rather than using a tripod, I'm using a fourth arrow monopod that actually sticks down the ground. It works out great for running and gunning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't do much more than that. I used to be big with decoys, but now I kind of lean a little more to less decoy action, just less movement. So, if I'm not using decoys or something, I'm probably only going to use the one camera. I get a little nervous as a self filmer, and when you get out there turkey hunting, and your mind will kind of get away from you sometimes. But where I hunt at, there's not far from the river bottoms, there's a pretty good bobcat population. So with using the shotgun mic with the furry wind cover on it,
Mm.
you get out in the wind.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. We're going way out in left field with this one. Um, you know, and most people don't think about it, but we've all
Yeah.
seen those videos where bobcats have actually attacked turkey hunters. And you don't really think about it too much until you're out there and you see the wind blowing that fur on that shotgun mic, and you're like, your mind starts playing with you, and you're starting to look over your left shoulder a little bit more. So I try to not do too much movement, especially where I'm hunting at, because there is a pretty good bobcat population, and I don't want to be one of those statistics. Um, but I've tried the GoPros. If I do a second camera, it's probably going to be a POV, where it's on me, for a different angle. It's all about creating that content. I've tried that. We're putting the GoPros out on the decoys, and I just got tired of erasing SD cards because no turkeys ever came in, and it was just a perpetual cycle. Um, so yeah, I pretty much just stick with the camcorder. I do have a DSLR that I sometimes use too as filming. But I think using the camcorder, especially with the remotes and monitor and everything, it just makes life a little bit easier.
Mhm. Do you put any kind of like netting or anything like that around your camera, or on the monopod or anything like that, or you just like straight monopod and camera?
Well, I tape up the monopod itself, and then I use an old face mask that I kind of uh, re-engineered. Did a little cutting here, a little sewing here that I kind of designed to go on that camera, and it covers up the shotgun mic, and barely the only thing you can see sticking out of it is going to be the lens. So yeah, I think that's you know you can't beat a turkey's eyesight. It's kind of like coyote hunting. You can't beat their eyesight either. Um, it's just anything we can do to try to cut down on that flash, or that something that just doesn't look right. And that was kind of the concept with using decoys, of trying to pull that attention to the decoys rather than maybe the movement of the camera. It's tough, Dylan. You'll find out when you're out there
Yeah,
filming turkeys. It's a lot harder than being 20 feet up in a tree where a deer doesn't even realize you're there, but now you're down at eye level. Um,
Right.
yeah, and they're looking. They come in peeled, and they're, I guess, just the way that they can pinpoint, you calling. And if you don't have a decoy, and I'm like you, I don't run decoys much, so that bird's already coming in, eyes on the prize, and he's
right.
gonna pick it out fast. So, yeah, no, that's kind of, I'm excited for Brett to come down and me see the video aspect of it, because I know once I see it, it's going to be all over. So with that being said, what do you recommend to start out? This will be a kind of a new thing. I've noticed a lot of people that are on here, they do video.
Mhm.
Tips for starting out to self film, because that's where a lot of people are wanting to go. I know myself included, but it's kind of scary when you see the price tags of things.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't need, I know guys that have produced very high quality videos just with their iPhones. And then there's been some big name film industry guys that have done some great things with iPhones. You don't need to spend a lot of money, especially getting started, because it may be something after a week you may want to kick it off in the river, uh,
Right.
because you're done dealing with it. You know, I think as far as a beginner, I would recommend using a video camera, a camcorder type camera to where you're not having to, uh, you let me back up. You have the capabilities of ease of use because you're not having to deal with a DSLR where you may have to manual focus. You may not have a remote. There's just a lot more experience that goes into a DSLR. So a good camcorder, I would recommend one that will take an external mic because you'll want that shotgun mic, or even if you're using a lavalier mic, the lapel mic. um, and try it. I would also recommend, and you get difference of opinions on it, but investing in a monitor, whether it be like a 6-inch monitor on top of your camera, because looking at that little flip out screen on a camcorder, you don't really see the great colors that a camera can produce like you can through a monitor on top of the camera. And you can really tell you're going to be out of focus. If you're looking at the little monitor that comes out on the side of the camera, it may look in focus, but it may not be. But on a monitor that's on top of the camera, you can really see your focus a lot better. But yeah, just you know a budget friendly camcorder that has the ports to take a remote and a shotgun mic, and the best piece of advice I can give you is just go out and use it. Um,
Absolutely.
and the biggest thing is don't, probably the hardest part is trying to not zoom in so far. If you're panned out and you still have that bird, even if it's some distance, you're going to produce a better quality video than zooming in. And chances are when you take that turkey, it may not be on film because you zoomed in too tight and he moved on you, but you didn't move the camera. But if you keep zoomed out, you have that open window, you have some leeway of which way that bird might go. Your chances are you're still going to get him on film.
Awesome. Yeah. I've noticed some like videos I've watched on YouTube where they've zoomed out, and I'm like, dang, it kind of looks like they're shooting the TSS with a 10 gauge at them because they're so far away. But I would rather
Right.
see that than I would, like zoomed in on a pine tree and they missed the shot there. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Doing anything tight or zooming in, that's where you really need a dedicated cameraman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. If
because
you
go ahead, buddy.
I say we've all been there. I remember my first time filming turkeys. I took a turkey and I was excited. I was like, oh, my first video turkey. I got this done. Yep. He wasn't on film.
Oh,
Yep. He was laying there on the ground, but yeah, I was too tight on the zoom, and he moved just a little bit, and I just in my brain thought that he was right there on film, and he wasn't. He was off screen.
That pulls the vibe down just a little bit, I'm sure,
Just
like once you get
just just a little bit. You know what I said about earlier about wanting to kick it off in the river? Yeah, that
it.
was one of those days.
But one of my biggest tips is if you're the camera guy, get it in a good spot for when he goes to pull the trigger, so you can not have it in your hand. Because guaranteed, if it's in your, like the uh, fluid head, grips in your
Yep,
hand when they pull the
yep,
trigger, you're gonna jerk the camera. I mean,
yep.
I'll give you a heads up. I'll say fire in a hole or something. Just let go of it. I mean, because
Right.
it'll be on my. I run a tripod most of the time because I like being able to move the legs a little bit. To let go of it, because
Yep.
when I shoot, it's gonna scare the shit out of you. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Yep. And you don't want that camera, especially with self filming. It's another thing that you don't think about is how close is that camera to you when you fire off that shotgun, just because of the percussion that's coming out of that barrel. You're going to see that camera shake.
Yeah.
There's no self filming turkeys. There's no perfect way to position that camera to where it's not going to happen.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
For sure.
but it's all trial and error. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get with it, and you're going to start seeing a better quality of film coming out.
Mm.
And you look at YouTube, and we all want to be that, have that perfect, crisp video. But there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube that have got a lot of attention. They may be a little bit out of focus. They're just not the greatest quality, and that's not what it's all about. It's people wanting to see you harvesting an animal or killing an animal on video. That's what it's all about. So, it's all trial and error.
Yeah, my West Virginia bird last year was just out of frame, not focused, and when I shot, I knocked the camera over. So I did the trifecta on that one.
But that's all part of it. That's not, if you put that video out there exactly as it was, that was your unique hunt. It wasn't something that was made up. You weren't creating video to replace messed up video. And that's what people want to see. They want to see what's naturally happening out there. And I think that gains more traction than anything else.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. We've hunted some and been like, the bird bust us or we kill the bird and we're like, what just happened? Like the raw, just you're in shock. You don't know, like, we've killed them. We're like, there's no way it's going to happen. And they do it, or they come in just behind you like a big buck would and they bust and you're like, dude, what? Like,
Right.
so yeah,
right.
if like, and I've related to some of those videos and I'm guilty. Sometimes I was talking to Brett about it, like looking at the thumbnail and seeing if they killed a turkey or not. And I was like, I need to break that because every time I hunt, we don't kill. So I wanted to see more of the, why somebody gets busted or why a hunt didn't fall into place. And I've learned a lot from that, just being like watching it, being like, oh, I could see that happening, or and then they're like, well, if we'd have done this, it could have potentially happened like that. So it just plays different scenarios in your head too, expanding to not just seeing that dead bird at the end.
Yeah, and I've done it, all directions. I've done it to where I'm creating B-roll, I'm creating footage prior to the hunt. It may have been something that I filmed during the hunt that I went back and tried to recreate it. But that natural hunt, even if it's a myth, that's kind of the persona out there, with a lot of kids who watch hunting videos, what they think that people never miss.
Right.
So,
Right.
if you have a good quality video and you miss that turkey, put it out there. People
Hmm.
like to see that because they can relate to that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, as far as filming, we can go down a lot of rabbit holes between autofocus and manual focus, and that's almost a whole podcast in itself. But starting out, autofocus, keep your brush trimmed if you can, and just turn it on and
Yeah.
let her eat.
I'm
I
sure I'm
must.
going to be diving deep soon. So,
Oh, for sure. I know you will for sure. Uh, like going back to the decoy talk a little bit, with the filming kind of thing. When you do, like last year in Michigan with Sloan, we had the 3/4 strut Jake out. We had the hen. Um, this bird was at 10 yards and had no clue in the world that I was there because he was so focused on that decoy. I probably could have like even like stood up and he would have had no idea. He was just so focused on it. And then him coming in and turning gave me, because we had like a little net blind up. It kind of gave me an opportunity to get a better shot on him. And then when he finally turned, I shot him. But I think the decoy helped me out, uh, situational wise, for the filming. Have I killed birds without a decoy on film? Yeah, I have. But the the majority of the time, I've had a decoy out when I've killed one on film.
Yeah, and a decoy can either be your best friend or your worst enemy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It can go so many different directions and it can go wrong in so many levels with a decoy, but it can also be very good. I grew up, once I discovered what turkey decoys were, I wanted to use them because everybody else was using them.
Yeah.
But as far as filming, especially self-filming, um, I prefer a decoy because, if it can draw that turkey's attention away from the possibility of catching any of your movement, that's going to be great. But I just like seeing the interaction between a tom and decoys. And
That too.
I've I've recorded some sweet footage with a tom interacting with a jake or a hen, and just the different dialect and the movements that they go through. Uh, you know, if you don't have that decoy, they're looking for you, and chances are, you might get that bird in front of you, and he may be so close you can't get him on film.
Hmm.
So it's trial and error. And and then talking about decoys, that's another rabbit hole we can go and spend a lot of time on.
For sure.
It just depends, are you using one turkey decoy, or are you using three, are you using a Jake, a hen, you're using a lay down? It's just all going to depend on what time of the year you're out there as well. You know, early season, are you using two decoys, to where late season you're only using a hen? It's so many different things, but it's all trial and error. You got to try everything. And each farm is going to be different. The birds on this farm might react completely different to a decoy than the birds over on that farm. So,
Mhm.
but I like them as far as a prop, and they look good on video. But as far as taking birds without decoys, there's nothing better than you have multiple birds and you take that tom and then you film the other birds jumping on that bird after you shot him, and it just creates some pretty exciting film.
Absolutely. So, what's in store for Forged in the Outdoors here coming up? Just turkey stuff, and then deer after that, or how many people you got filming for turkey?
Um, as of right now, we're just trying to produce that film. It's been a little bit behind the eight ball over the last year or two. It's everybody's getting busy, and it takes commitment to do filming and stuff like that. We're just gonna keep rolling. I'm talking to a couple different guys and maybe bringing on some new team members. There's three or four people that have the accessibility to be out there filming. It just depends on what their schedules are. But yeah, it's predator hunting going into turkey season. After turkey season, we'll go back into predator hunting and get ready, and then we'll start chasing catfish, and which I don't film any of that, but then get ready to go back into deer. So yeah, that's run and gun. Keep
Yeah,
them cameras rolling.
absolutely. Um, so, is there any kind of secret you want to let out of the bag? Just somebody that may listen to my show gets a little preview at something.
Well, you just tell them. I mean, heck.
No, you tell them.
Yeah, we're I've been throwing around this idea for a while of starting a Forged in the Outdoors podcast. Um, it's one of those platforms now. As growing up as a kid, we had VHS tapes, and, graduating up to cable television and satellite television, and now streaming. Doing the video side of everything, but the popularity of podcast has grown so much. And when you talk to other industry leaders and owners, when talking about partnerships and sponsorships, they're very excited about podcasts because you can reach so many people, um, and with just a little bit of effort, to where you don't have to put a whole lot of work into like doing filming. And people, that's today's um ebooks. You can turn on a podcast and drive to work, and put on a podcast and drive, cross country, and there's so many out there. So I think we're gonna tap dance around starting up the old podcast, and see how it goes. So
It'll be a
so
fun. It'll be a lot of fun for you, man. Podcasting can be a lot of fun, or something that you realize very quickly. You're like, maybe I don't want to do this.
well, I don't want it to come across like, kind of the old joke is that podcasts started because they weren't successful at filming. Um,
Right.
so that was just another avenue of getting into the outdoor industry. But as human beings, we love to talk. We love to tell stories. We love to talk about experiences. So, what's a better way to do it than getting people together and just talking about it? And it's just a simple, it's easy. Pop the old earbuds in and listen to a podcast all day long, no matter what you're doing. So, it's a great way to get your information out and reach a lot of people.
I kind of think of it as like radio, but you get to choose the genre or the topic at hand of what you want to listen to. That's how I kind of explain it to people at coworkers that ask me about my show and stuff like that. like I kind of say that like, well, we're a bow hunting podcast, but right now I'm talking turkey. And there's some people
Right.
that don't want to listen to whitetail talk every day, and especially with most whitetail. I wouldn't say most. A lot of whitetail hunters are also turkey hunters, so they're going to want to hear about it. They're getting fired up. They're getting ready to take trips on places. They may be on a trip, heading down to a trip right now, and got this in their, playing through the speakers in their truck. It's just kind of cool to have that niche of this is what they want to listen to.
It's the serious radio of the outdoor industry.
Yep.
Right, for
you know,
sure.
and it, and it's season specific. We all have our favorite podcasters, and you may have some that do just talk about Western hunting or deer hunting, and then you get into turkey season, and you got those that you listen to that are known for turkey hunting. And I'm the same way with predator hunting. There's predator hunting podcasts out there, and I listen to those. So it's just as the season goes, it just depends on who I'm going to listen to. But I figured why not start something where I can talk about all of it in one place.
Yep. As hunters, we're seasonal. For myself, I roll from land management into bow season, into duck season, back into turkey, and it's just a revolving door. So like
Right.
my mind's always running. So when I can throw a podcast on and listen to other like-minded people with the same story, man, I've learned so much from podcasts, and
Yeah.
tactics or tricks or tips, and it's just like somebody's like, "Where'd you learn that?" or "Where'd you hear that podcast?"
Right.
So it's really neat, and then that opens up a whole nother avenue for that podcast to reach a new, you know, ear, and then
Yeah.
it snowballs, and especially if it's beneficial and it's fun. I think that nobody's going to listen to a boring podcast, but if you can relate and throw good advice out, man, they're going to eat it up.
Yeah, it's one of those things that with everybody's experience and kind of Brett and I had talked about this, I think, in the last podcast. So the title of our show is Forged in the Outdoors. Well, everybody has been forged one way or another in the outdoors, whether they were self-taught or they had their dad that taught them how to hunt, or an uncle or a cousin or something. So everybody out there's got a story to tell. And I think with podcasts, versus video, you're specific.
Hmm.
You can only deer hunt or turkey hunt or whatever it may be. But with podcasting, I don't know that you'd ever run out of finding somebody to talk to. Everybody out there in
Yeah.
the industry anybody that's outdoors person is going to have a story to tell. And, what a better way than to tell others, you know, a different story. It's every person's got a different experience. Every person's got a different story. Every person's got a different method in how they do things. So, and podcast is the best way to get that information out there, and it's pure entertainment.
Hmm.
Absolutely, and there's some bad ones out there too. We I'm not gonna name the show or even the guest, but me and Dylan were doing some research on a guest that was wanting to come on the show, and he had done a prior show with someone. So I sent him the link and hey, if you get time, listen to this. This is who we're gonna have on at some point. And I think he made it less than me. I made it about 12 minutes in, and I couldn't do it anymore.
Made
I
it
just
about
thought,
4.
I was like,
Yeah,
this one's not my cup of tea. I think I'll just listen to the radio on the way home.
yeah. I mean, you're gonna have those.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it's for people is nerves. It's just nervous. And something I was just thinking about, and I was going to ask you, Brett,
Mhm.
have you done a podcast where it's just been you? You're just talking,
Yeah,
and
I couldn't do it. I don't think.
there's nobody there to talk to. You have to continuously think of something to be talking about
Yeah, I don't
and to
think I
make
could
it
do
and
that.
keep it going. And that's got to be tough. And I know people that do that, and that's how they started out.
Hmm.
Um, I like the camaraderie. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
doing that. And I've thought about, is my first episode, is it going to be just me? Can I not make a fool out of myself and try to put together an episode of just talking? It's going to depend on what I'm talking about or what I'm rambling on about. But, I like the camaraderie. I like the aspect of not only having, the voice side of it, but also the video side of it, like what we're doing here.
Mhm.
You know, people able to put a face with a name and see that interaction. You know, it's people don't want to listen to somebody ramble on about something that they did 30 years ago, and then you're trying to tell that story without somebody there to get a reaction from or to ask questions.
Mhm.
And I like the back and forth, and yeah, it'll be interesting. I might be that person that you don't want on your show anymore after I get started with it.
Nah, I
But
don't like that.
I'm, as you can't tell, I like to talk. So
Me too.
it'll be a fun adventure, and you know, like I said, there's always somebody around the corner that has a story to tell. So yeah, once I get it up and running, we'll have to definitely get you guys on and do a little reverse show where I can ask you the questions.
Absolutely.
I'm always down to talk, just like you. I like talking to you and having beers with you guys and talking turkey hunting and stuff. I mean, it's why I do it. You know, I've it's crazy. You know, we had talked about you coming on and co-hosting with me in episodes and stuff,
Right,
kind of
right,
before Dylan jumped in there. But
right.
I like having that other person now. When I did it just me and interviewing just one on one each week, don't get me wrong, loved it. I did it for
Sure,
70 something episodes, but
sure.
having that other person to bounce ideas off of, talk about, who we're going to have on or do this and do that, it makes it more fun for me. You make it more fun for me, this content is going to be incredible because we're having fun doing it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you
And
know, every time there's a podcast, it's always happy hour too. So
yeah, and it's so cool because each time you have an episode, it's going to be different views because you're Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, like it's all different and it's set up different. Like, he was telling me the turkey population there is less than yours. And so it's just like cool to see him listen and get excited about what you're saying. And then I'm learning something. So like I told him, I was like, I'm excited about this podcast because I know I'm going to learn something from it,
right,
and it's just cool because if you put us in a room 7 days a week for a year, we're going to talk about different things, but
right.
all under the same umbrella of hunting. And that's what's so
Yeah,
cool about it because it brings everybody together and it's just stories on stories and like ideals of how you can make new memories and new hunts. And hunting's evolving, like the banner behind you there, the Quaker boy, that unlocked a memory of mine from a childhood of watching the DVDs and the VHSs because that was such a, they would throw the logos up. So that's really cool to see, and that flashed me back. So it's crazy how hunting can kind of keep you out of trouble as you grow up, or like keep you on the straight and narrow just because you don't have time for anything else.
right. Well, it's just like the situation right here. The only thing it's missing is a campfire. You
Mhm.
know,
Absolutely.
this is just like sitting at a turkey camp or deer camp. Telling stories and maybe a lie once in a while, but um, it's fun. You know, you get that camaraderie and you get that fellowship going back and forth, and this is what it's all about. Like I said, the only thing it's missing is a campfire.
Absolutely.
I think it's changed the dynamic of this show. I see it's different for me and for Dylan because we're the ones putting it out. Yeah, we're listening to it, but I would really love to hear the person that's not involved with this weekly. Tell
Right.
me, did it change for the good? Did it change for the bad? Is it
Right.
something you still continue to listen to? Like, I would like to hear those sort of
Sure.
responses on stuff like that. And honestly, I think a lot of the responses would be like the banter, and I think it's getting good.
So, do you listen to your own shows, Brett?
Yeah, that's the first thing I do on tomorrow being Wednesday on the ride to work. I'll listen to it just to see if there's something I said in there that I probably shouldn't have, or if a topic that I missed thinking about it. Because like I even kind of listened to just a little bit of our last show. What did I ask you last time? I didn't want to dive deep on stuff that we've already talked about
Right.
because it wasn't really all that long ago. And it just like I have like a million wheels that turn in my mind when it
Yep.
comes to the show.
Yeah, it's the sky's the limit, as far as being creative and the questions you can ask. and who you're going to have there. And the reason why I ask if you listen to your own content, because there are some podcasters out there that just absolutely will not listen to their episodes. They'll do the show, they'll edit it, as far as maybe trimming off of the both ends of it and produce it out there, but they'll never listen to it.
I
They
like
just
listening to it just to see if I caught anything that errors or something that maybe I should have edited out, or you never know. Like and then I put ad reads in there, and I got to make sure that all went smooth and that sort of thing. I don't know, it's a lot of stuff to kind of iron out, and if
right.
I catch it at 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe I can fix it before everybody starts listening to it. I'm like, man, there was like a 20-second gap in there,
That's that point where you figure out that we're going to skip an episode of this week. We're just going to wait and put out next week's.
Right. Well, a suggestion, you talked about doing episode 1 kind of by yourself. What if you did like an introductory episode where you maybe talked for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something by yourself, kind of lay out what you want to do with the show, what people you're going to have on, the ideas you have behind it. I think you could probably talk to yourself for about 10 minutes and not sound super crazy.
Oh, an intro. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe as long as I don't come across like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat or something.
Right.
And I've already thrown around, I've kind of been making a list of people. I've been involved in the outdoor industry for 20, maybe 30 years. I know it's been over 20 years, and I know a lot of people, and it's like you're always thinking about those people that, hey, I wonder if I can get so and so to be on my podcast. And I've already been talking to Quaker Boys, so they're gonna have an episode coming up at some point. I've been using Quaker Boy calls. Little plug here.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I've been using Quaker Boy calls since I was a teenager, and they partnered up with Fords in the Outdoors, a couple years ago, and Chris Kirby and them guys over there have just been nothing but fantastic. And but that's part of my tradition is Quaker Boy game calls. So I've already got them hopefully signed up to go on board. But it's another thing, there's so many people out there that have a story to tell that they've never been asked to tell it. And, finding those people, and, just a regular Joe, who, he may have a world record buck hanging on his wall that nobody knows about, and nobody's actually got him to tell the story. So that's one of the great things about podcasts is, there's so many people out there that have a story to tell.
Absolutely. Well, buddy, it's been a blast having you on again. I'm sure somewhere down the road we might do this all over again, or come on your show. I'm sure we'll have you on at some point again. Even if hopefully you're the guy that's got that big buck you just killed, and you got the story to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know what? You might have that turkey beard, that turkey with 5 beards, and you're going to come and tell about it on Fords in the Outdoors. But,
right.
Man, I can't believe our 15-minute time's up already.
It's crazy.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, tell everybody where they can find you and Forged in the Outdoors.
We're pretty much on every social media channel, YouTube primarily for the videos, but we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Go Wild. That's another app that's out there. And then personally, personally, I'm out there on all of them as well. So, if you have any questions or if you want to complain about me in any way, shape, or form, you know where to find me. But yeah. So be watching for those social media accounts for when we actually launch the podcast and put it out there.
Absolutely.
And, spread the word.
Yes, sir. What about you, Dylan? Where can they find you at?
Same place last week. D Albright 7 or Dylan Albright. It varies. It's every week will be the same, but it's a picture of me and a dead animal or me and the little girl. So
I laugh because that's always your response when I ask you that. Where can I find you? Same place as last week.
Same last week.
Well, Brett, at least he didn't say under the steps in the basement. So
True. Well, everybody, we appreciate you listening in podcast land, and if you're on the YouTube, hit that like and subscribe for us. Rate and review on in podcast land. We'll be back here again, episode 82. It'll be the episode before I head down to Tennessee, so it may be just me and Dylan talking about what we're going to do in Tennessee for an hour, which is, I'm sure, fine with everybody. I'm sure, but we'll see you again here next week, and everybody enjoy the rest of their week.
Been a pleasure, guys.